Welcome to From the Trenches, success shortcuts revealed by real-world innovators crushing it right now. I'm your host, Scott Hartley, and we're back with another episode packed with actionable strategies from today's most successful entrepreneurs. If you're tired of generic business advice and ready for real cutting-edge tactics that are working right now, you're in the right place. And today is going to be totally different because now the script actually ends and I am the person on the other side of the microphone. So my buddy Dean reached out to me a couple weeks ago and he's like, hey, how about we kind of flip the script and I interview you as a guest on your own podcast? What do you think of that idea? And I was like, yeah, I think I kind of like that idea. I'll be up for that. So that's what we're doing here today. So Dean, I'm excited to see what you have in store for me.
Hey, remember, you agreed to this, so just so that you're aware.
There was no disclaimers or anything that were sent beforehand to all of this. So
right. Well, folks, for all of you out there, just so that you're aware of why I did this. And the main reason why is because I understand the wealth of knowledge that Scott brings to the table. Especially in and around anything email marketing, copywriting, email deliverability, and so on and so forth. I also know that he's extremely generous with his knowledge, his wisdom that took him painstakingly many years to kind of acquire. So when you're the guy hosting, you don't usually get to share your genius. So that's why I figured, let's push him. Now, the last time I interviewed Scott was about 2 years ago. And, so I'm gonna touch on some of those same points that we hit on back then to kind of get an idea of what's new, what's different, what's changed, what's the same, and all of that stuff. Before I do, let me give you a little bit of Scott's bio. One of the things he doesn't always get a chance to kind of communicate to you, but you should hear some of this because it's pretty cool. So here I'm gonna read it out to you. Scott A. Hartley is a certified inbox optimization specialist, a direct response copywriter. He's the author of Hit the Inbox and founder of the company by the same name. Now, there are 100 ways to get email marketing wrong and only a handful of ways to get it right. Scott has helped over 350 business owners find the right ways for their businesses since about 2018. Now, Scott has shared the stage with experts like Grant Cardone, Laura Langemeyer, who I was friends with back in the day as well, Kim Walsh-Phillips. Very cool, man. His expertise has appeared in numerous publications and online sites, including Mansell Media, Marketing Interview, Keep, and Marketer Magazine. In his free time, Scott enjoys being outside in nature, reading, traveling, playing piano and keyboard, which I love the fact that he does that, coming from a drummer myself, and spending time with friends. Scott sang at the famed Carnegie Hall. Can you believe this, folks? In New York City in May of 2022 as part of a national choir led by the world-renowned composer and conductor, Pepper Choplin. So that's pretty amazing. That's pretty fun. And I'm glad that you took the time to give a little bit of your personal too, because I think it does matter. I think the personal and the professional have a way of weaving together. Yeah, and kind of exposing who you truly are and why you do what you do.
Yeah.
So without any further ado, is there anything else you want to share about your bio, Scott, before I start drilling with the questions?
No, well, the only thing I would say, and I've been made fun of this before, is, that little paragraph that you read about my hobbies, that's about all the hobbies that I have. I am not, a person that has a lot of different hobbies and everything. Right. So, playing piano, being out in nature, traveling, those are kind of the things that I really enjoy. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. All right. So the last time I drilled you on email marketing and everything around it, I asked you a very simple, straightforward question to kind of squash the thought or embellish the thought. Is email marketing still alive in 2025? I mean, we hear so much on both sides of the fence. What do you have to say about that, Scott?
Yeah, email marketing is still alive and kicking. It's still the number one way for businesses to generate revenue. I mean, we have all the shiny bells and the whistles, all that type of stuff. We have social media and we have all these other things that grab our attention. That's like, oh, you need to be doing this type of marketing. But if you think about it, if you're doing social media ads, even if you're doing direct mail, if you're doing phone calls, cold calling, whatever, where are all of these marketing media typically leading to? They're leading to a page on your website for people to fill out a form, or they're responding to a text. Those contacts get added into what? Your CRM. And then how do you follow up with them? Email, right?
Correct.
It's like almost all roads lead to email. And so email is the number one way to build relationships, grow your business, and get more sales.
Now, that being said, I actually read a LinkedIn post of yours today, Scott, and you actually, it was a great post, by the way. And what I appreciated about it, as a small business coach myself, and having worked with so many business owners over the years, if we don't put this stuff in English for them and stuff that they really understand, it makes it just go woof, right over their head. They don't get it, right?
Yep.
And you actually put a dollar figure to it for every dollar you spend. Can you expand on that for a moment?
Yeah, so there's different studies out there that have pulled in all of this data from a lot of different places, and it's anywhere from $36 to $42 in profits in revenue that you make off of every dollar that you spend for email marketing. Where can you get that kind of return? Can you go out and run Facebook ads and consistently get $36 to $42 for every dollar that you put in Mark Zuckerberg's pocket?
Right.
It's possible, I guess, but the likelihood of that happening is very, very slim. Whereas, like with email, like it's almost a given if you're doing it the right way.
Right. So I went there first, Scott, on purpose, because for all of those business owners out there, that's the reality of it. And I use an example all the time where I'll say, if I put you in front of an old style soda machine, but instead of soda, every time you stuck a dollar bill in, it spit three back out at you. Would
Yeah,
you leave that soda machine ever? Or would you stand there for hours at a time, just keep inserting $1 bills? So
exactly.
if email marketing is doing anything like the numbers you're talking about, it's almost like we'd have to all be crazy not to be doing it.
But
Right.
here's the kind of the misconception. So, for every dollar you spend on email marketing, most business owners, if you take an unofficial poll, a non-scientific poll, how much does email marketing cost you? Oh, email's free. See, we don't put a
Right.
dollar figure to it that there is an expense to doing email marketing, or what I would rather say, there's an investment to doing email
Sure.
marketing.
Sure.
You put that dollar in, it's going to get you $36 to $42 back if you're doing email marketing the right way. But you have to understand, and this is where a lot of businesses get into trouble, is that they say, oh, email's free. And so I don't have to be as diligent in how I approach it. I don't have to be as methodical. I don't have to think about it. I just blast out my list. I do all these things because it doesn't cost me. And if it doesn't
Right.
cost me to actually do it, it doesn't then cost me when I'm being penalized.
Right. Right. Fantastic. Now, throughout the course of this conversation today, I'm going to bring you down a lot of different rabbit holes, Scott.
All right.
And when we talk about email marketing and the cost of email marketing, there are lots of my mind immediately goes to a lot of different elements. And the first big one is the list building process. There is a cost involved in the list building process.
Yeah.
And it's more than just, I set something up and let it go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's try. Can we give the listeners here today any kind of a framework or anything like that for how they should start if they're just embarking on list building for the first time? What can we give them on do this, then do this, then do this, then do this,
Yeah.
and in as simplest terms as possible. And
So
folks, I did not rehearse this with Scott, so he has no idea what I'm going to ask him.
I have no idea what the questions are going to be. So this ought to be interesting. But I like the fact that you started with the list building, because all of the marketing gurus, right or wrong, and I think it's wrong in many cases, but all the marketing gurus, they're focusing on, hey, build your list, grow your list, get more people, get new leads, get new customers. when we're really sitting on a gold mine in our business that we're neglecting. And maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But the list building process is important because so many of us do it. I mean, I'm currently running Facebook ads myself to a brand new lead magnet that I created just a month or so ago called the Open Rate Maximizer Checklist.
Right.
I'm
Right.
using that to grow my list. Now, here's the thing. I'm spending money on Facebook. Now, I'm doing pretty good with my return on investment because with that lead magnet, it's only costing me less than $2 a lead that opts in for that lead magnet, which is almost unheard of on Facebook. But here's the thing. If I just, Dean, if you go to that page and you opt in and I send you one email that says, hey, Dean, here's your checklist. Good luck. Go do it. I've just burnt $2. I mean, I might
Right.
as well just, flush it down the toilet. That's why email is so important, is because I now have to follow up and build a relationship with you so that hopefully you will turn into a client of mine so that I can make more than that $2 that I spent to actually get you. And so that list building process is important. And we have to understand that it's not just the technical aspect of like, oh, I got the lead, oh, I delivered the lead magnet, and that's it. It's like, how do I bring them along on a journey and build that relationship? And I do that through my
Right.
emails.
So I love what you're saying. And I interpret it in my simplistic mind as we've got to give to get. It
Yeah.
starts out, this process is going to start out by some sort of a valuable offer, something real, solving some specific problem. You specifically mentioned a lead magnet,
Yeah.
having some sort of gift, some sort of way, an ethical bribe. Sometimes it was called back in the day,
Yeah.
giving them something. But I love how you went immediately toward the relationship
Yeah.
because, yeah, it's much easier in my mind to develop or to build my list than it is to manage and build that relationship over time.
Yeah.
Am I right or wrong with that?
Yeah, because I mean, it's easy to get people, if you're really giving people what they want, solving a problem that they have, satiating a desire that they have, like you can create that lead magnet and give that to them. That's the
Right.
easy part. It's the follow-up that's always the difficult part, and building that relationship. I mean, even if you just put it into, human relationships.
Right.
You go to a networking event and you start talking to somebody and everything. Okay, you've got a good rapport that's going on. But then if you don't do anything with that after the networking event is over with, well, now, like, what was the use of it? Now you're
Yeah.
just basically back to being strangers again. And so you have to build, those relationships, whether it's a work relationship or personal relationship, whatever. It takes time and it takes a strategy to do that.
Yeah. And a will. You've got to want it,
Yeah.
right? You've got to
Yep.
want to do it because otherwise, I remember going back many, many years when I used to network a lot and you go to these events and you exchange business cards and the business cards end up in a drawer somewhere. And, 6 months later, oh, look at this. I got all these cards from that. Too late now. You blew the
Yeah.
opportunity to start developing that relationship.
And
So,
here's something else too about that. You focus on the relationship first.
right.
Focus on the relationship first. Obviously, you're going to deliver whatever it is that they opted in for. And yes, you can have in your subsequent emails some calls to action that, maybe invite them to do business with you, get on a call, whatever your methodology is there. But the
Right.
one thing that you don't want to do right out of the gate, hey, thanks for requesting my lead magnet, buy my stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you got my report, buy my stuff.
Right.
Like that's going to kill it right out of the gate. So there's a process that you want to go through. Yes, you need to be making offers. Yes, you need to do that, as soon as possible. But there's a right way to do that so that it doesn't come across as like, oh, I need you to buy from me, or, that's all I'm about is, turning you into a cash machine for my business.
Yeah, I mean, email marketing has gotten such a bad rap over the years because the marketers that have been out there in the field have really destroyed the email marketing process and everything about it. I mean, how many times, and am I wrong here, Scott? Correct me if I'm wrong. How many times we would sign up for somebody's lead magnet only to find out that we're getting all kinds of junk email from these people that we really didn't want, we really didn't consent to, right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about consent. what's necessary there, and what does a small business owner need to understand? Let's just imagine they're building their list, right?
Yeah.
And now what do they need to know about the consent that they need to get before they start going crazy on people sending a million emails?
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting that you asked that question, because just recently I was consulting with a client who's kind of gotten themselves into a little bit of hot water in this respect. They're doing a lot of list building types of things, of activities. And so they're getting new leads on their list, but they're getting complaints mainly in two areas. Number one, you're sending me way too many emails. Now, let me just go down a little rabbit trail here. This particular client sends emails every single day. Now, for most of my listeners, that's probably a foreign concept, and you're probably saying, Scott, see, you've got a client that's sending emails every day. I told you I don't want to do that because you're going to be ticking a lot of people off. Give me just a second to explain, okay? There's a reason why they're sending emails every day, and it's good for their business because their audience, the majority of their audience expects and they want that. But these are new leads that are coming in. And so they're complaining about the number of emails that they're getting. The second type of complaint that they were getting is these are unsolicited emails. Like, I didn't sign up for this stuff. I opted in for the lead magnet, but now I'm getting stuff for these other things. And so they're saying, like, wait a minute, this isn't what I agreed to. What's so critically important, and what I've been advising this client, because they are like probably in the top 1% of all my clients with their email health and doing all the things right. Okay. It's just that this little area. And it's like, okay, there's a couple things you need to be aware of. Number one, when somebody comes into your list, you need to set the expectations for what this relationship is going to look like.
Yes.
How often am I going to send you an email? What's the value of the emails that you're going to be sending me? Like, how is it going to benefit me? Because we're all tuned into the radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? If we tell people right up front, over the course of the next 2 weeks, I'm going to send you 5 emails. And here's kind of some of the stuff that you're going to benefit from what I'm going to be sending you. Now it's like, ooh, I want to stay in touch here. I want to make sure that I don't miss these emails. And I know that you're going to respect my inbox because it's going to be 5 emails, not 6, not 20. It's going to be 5. And so now I know, like, okay. And then in that same email, we say, if this isn't for you, jump ship. Like, here's your chance to opt out. Like, and we won't email you. And so now you're giving them control over their own inbox. You're saying, hey, I've got a lot of stuff I want to give you. I want to bring value to you. I want to help you. But if all you wanted was my lead magnet, my checklist, great. Here you go. Here's your chance. You got it. Now you can, go on your merry way. Come back when you're ready. That's so important at the very beginning of list building, because it sets the tone for how that interaction is going to look going forward. And if things change, so typically most marketers recommend that whenever you have a lead magnet or some sort of opt-in, you've got kind of like this welcome, this indoctrination, or what my friend Chava Borsazi calls it, an imprinting sequence. So it's going to last for a defined period of time. Well, once that period of time ends, what's going to happen after that? Well, again, let's say that you're going to send 5 emails over the course of 2 weeks. At the end of that 2-week period, now you need to set the expectation. Here's what our relationship looks like going forward from this point. I'm going to send you an email every day. I'm going to send you a weekly email, whatever that looks like. And again, here's the value that you're going to get from that. And if you don't want it, here's your chance to suddenly go off into the sunset. No hard feelings. And so it's that process. But if you think about it, even just in dating, okay, yeah, we're kind of like casually dating, blah, blah, blah. Okay, things get a little bit more serious. How's that going to work? What does that mean? Are we going to go out to eat every night? All that type of stuff. Apply those same principles to your email marketing as you do for real relationships that you have.
Woo, that was some pure fire there. I really, really appreciate that. And I love the approach, because you're kind of doing an onboarding almost. Just like how you would onboard a great client that you want to stay around. right? You're
Yeah.
setting expectations up front so nobody could turn around and say, hey, that's not what I expected or what I wanted. Um, I know a lot of small business owners are afraid that somebody's going to opt out real quick. What do you
Right.
say to them about that mindset?
It happens. Like I've looked at my statistics on my open rate maximizer checklist, and I've had a number of people, they opt it. I send them the email, boom. In that email, they click the unsubscribe link. They
Right.
got what they signed up for, and that's all that they wanted. And here's the thing, that's okay, because that means that I'm not wasting my investment dollars on people who have no interest in what I have to share with them. Because
Right.
remember, goes back to what I said earlier, email is not free. It does actually require us to put money, time, and energy into that. So we are making an investment. I don't want to waste my time, energy, and money on somebody who's not ready for what I have to offer. And I can do all the convincing in the world, but if they're not ready, they're not going to do anything. And so I've really had to learn, like several years ago when I had my IT business. I don't know if I've shared this story before to too many people, but I was actually attending a relative's funeral one day,
Mm-hmm.
and I got an unsubscribe from an email that I'd sent out that was a very personal email that I'd sent out to my list. And I took offense to that because I was like, I shared something very personal and you unsubscribed from that email. Another
Right.
instance when I had my IT business, I sent out a Thanksgiving Day email on Thanksgiving Day. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you're having a great, time with family, blah, blah, blah. I had somebody unsubscribe on Thanksgiving Day from the Thanksgiving Day email. And I was just like, oh, like, really? Like
Right.
how callous, right? I've had to change my mindset in like, you know what? It's their inbox. They don't want to hear from me. Like, just let it go and focus on the people who really want to be in your community.
Yeah, I guess we're all so wired and pre-programmed to think like, oh, they don't like me. I'm a bad person
Yep.
now, because somebody unsubscribed. And I totally agree with the camp you're coming from. That it's like I'd rather not have that person on my list. And what you did there, Scott, is you opened up a whole bunch of rabbit holes that we're going to go down, right? And we're going to
Yep.
take them one at a time. And when I think about one of them is list hygiene, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Another one is going to be things like their engagement and open rates and things like that. Which angle do you want to go down first? Because you just opened all of that up.
Let's do that engagement open rate. I've got some stuff I really want to get off my chest on that.
All right. I like that one. So let's talk about engagement and open rates. All right. So
So
go for it.
here we are. So I've had numerous conversations with dozens of people, and I tell them, like, you've got to prune your list. You got to get rid of the dead weight. And I don't know where this came from, but it's become so pervasive that the size of our list matters. And it's like, oh, I've got 5,000 people that opted into my list over the years, no
Right.
matter where they came from, they're mine.
Yeah.
Like, and I can't let them go. So we're afraid for them to unsubscribe. But then also, we're sending out all of these emails. So I had a conversation with another client that has fallen into dangerous territory with their email health score. Not only has their email health score fallen into danger territory, but Google has downgraded their domain reputation.
Ooh.
So now it's a double whammy.
Right.
Okay. My advice that is correct, I'm just going to say it. My advice that is correct, you need to opt out these, and I think it was like 1,300 contacts or something of that number. My client immediately pushed back. She was like, well, I don't want to lose touch with these 1,300 people. In our business, our clients typically only buy once or twice a year. And I'm sitting here thinking, let's take a step back. You've been emailing these 1,300 contacts, and these are contacts that have not opened or clicked an email in more than 90 days, with the majority of them more than 365 days or ever. Okay. So 3 months or longer, these contacts have been doing nothing with your emails, but yet you've been emailing them weekly. Most people buy from you once or twice a year. If they haven't opened an email in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, in 6 years, please tell me the likelihood that all of a sudden, that in the next 8 months, that they're going to open up an email and say, oh my God, I woke up today, I saw your email, and I'm going to go buy.
Right.
Like, that's not going to happen. Right? The
Right.
likelihood, you probably have a better chance of getting struck by lightning or winning the lottery than that happening. Right?
Right.
And it's actually hurting. So we have this mindset of like, okay, if I prune this list, if I get rid of these contacts, I'm going to miss out on sales. Where are we operating from? We're operating from a place of fear. And unfortunately, as business owners, we tend to navigate, it's just kind of human nature. We tend to operate a lot of times from places of fear instead of places of opportunity. It's like, okay, I've got 1,300 contacts that have been telling me for a while by their inaction that they're not interested in what I have to say or what I have to offer.
Right.
Okay, how do I go find 1,300 people that really do have what I have to offer? That's operating from a position of opportunity.
Right.
Totally different mindset. And you're going to have a whole lot more success when you operate from a position of opportunity as opposed out of a place of fear.
Well, let's talk about the downside. Now, let's say I've got a list of 10,000 and half of which I haven't reached out to in a year, 5 years, whatever that is. Now, and I'm doing email blasts. I'm sending all 10,000 people an email about whatever I've got going on right now. Mm-hmm. Now, talk to me a little bit about open rates, why that's going to matter.
Yeah.
Engagement, why that's going to matter. And obviously, if I'm sending it to people who notoriously are not engaging, how is that going to affect what I'm doing and everybody else I'm trying to do it with?
Yeah, it's a ripple effect because all of the mailbox providers, so Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo, they're looking at so many different metrics when they're looking at where are they going to place your email if they delivered it all, right? And that also plays into your domain reputation. So when you're looking at that, so if you've got 10,000, or let's just appeal to the listeners of the podcast with the smaller list, 1,000. What the majority of your recipients are doing at any given provider. So let's just take Google, for example. If the bulk of your list are made up of people who have gmail.com or Google Workspace addresses, what is the bulk of those contacts? What are they doing with your emails? Are the majority of them opening, clicking, and replying? Or are they just letting them sit there and kind of like fill up their inbox? Are they deleting them? Are they marking them as spam? That is going to affect what the majority is doing, is going to affect everybody that you're delivering to on that particular platform. So in the event, let's say that you've got 700 out of your 1,000 contacts that are Gmail subscribers, because that's not uncommon. Right. So you've got 70% of your list that are Google subscribers. And let's say that 50% of your Google subscribers are doing nothing with your emails. Google's going to say, well, you know what? You're sending out 700 emails to 700 people on our platform. 350 of them, yeah, they're engaging, but you've got 350 that they're not doing anything. You know what? We're not really going to put your emails where anybody can see them. We're going to start burying them. And it kind of goes into a progression. So your emails may start off primary inbox. Everybody can see them every time that you send them.
Right.
That engagement, because people aren't opening, clicking, or replying, that starts to die off. Google notices. And it could be for that individual user, or it could be everybody aggregate on their platform. They can say, you know what? You're not getting much engagement. They don't want to see this. So we're going to shift it over to the promotions tab or the updates tab if certain users have those tabs enabled. Then what they're going to say is like, okay, well, now that they're not seeing them and they're not doing anything with them still, you know what? This content isn't of value to them at all. We're just going to shift them over to the spam folder.
Ooh, so it's almost like they're being demoted because
Exactly.
of their bad behaviors,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
playing the game the way, let's face it, the Googles, the Microsofts, the way they want it played.
Yeah.
And, that makes a lot of sense. And so folks, if you're realizing or recognizing that your emails are hitting promotion tabs and not the straight up inbox, or they're getting into people's spam, there's nothing worse than having to say to a new client, oh, check your spam folders,
Yeah.
why, you send a lot of spam? Is that what's going
Right.
on here? Right.
Exactly.
So,
Well, and interestingly enough, I had somebody that was referred over to me, and I've been having correspondence with them by email, and they're a high volume sender. So most
right.
of the businesses I work with are low volume. They have smaller lists and everything. This particular business, they have over 1 million subscribers. They're emailing large portions of those in the tunes of hundreds of thousands every single day, and they noticed that in October, when Google released their security update, that in the days following, that their click rates started to fall. And they were like, what's happening? They did some more investigation, and they found out that a lot of their emails had started to go to the promotions tab. Well, I
Right.
said, guess what? You're not alone. I said, because of this latest security update that Google just rolled out, most emails from marketing platforms are going to the promotions tab. Has nothing to
Right.
do with what you're sending per se. It's Google's tightening up their algorithms. But I said, and I asked them for a lot more detail. I said, what's your domain reputation? What, are you segmenting your list? Are you sending targeted communication as opposed to just general info, to your thousands of people? How often are you emailing? What's your spam complaint rate? What's your bounce rate? All the technical stuff that we need to be looking at on a regular basis. And I said, what's your open and click rates? So they sent over all this information, and they were hyper focused. They're like, we got to get out of the promo tab. Like, we just got to get out of the promo tab.
Right.
And they were like, and I could tell because they specifically said, are you an expert in getting out of the promo tab?
Right.
That's all they're hyper focused on.
Right.
I know that they were not going to be happy with my answer to what I was going to share with them. All of their metrics look great except their open rates. Now,
Ah.
open rates are not the greatest thing. They are very unreliable with all the new privacy measures and everything.
Yes, exactly.
But it's a starting point that we do have to look at. Now, their open rates by most viewpoints would be good. They would be average. They were 20 to 30%. Most people would kill for that. But that's not good enough anymore.
Right.
Open rates need to be at 80% or better.
Wow. Holy cow.
Open rates need to
Woo.
be at 80% or better.
Wow.
So my advice to them was two things. I said, number one, your open rates aren't anywhere where they need to be. And it's not because the emails are landing in the promo tab. Yes, you need to give instructions to subscribers to go look there and do things with your emails. But then secondly, that tells me you've been emailing a lot of people for a long period of time who haven't been opening and clicking and replying. You need to start pruning your list. And then you need to be changing up your content, because chances are people are tired of the way you're saying things or what you're saying, that type of thing. You need to provide something new, a different way for them to kind of consume that information, because there's a
Right.
thing known as list fatigue. People just get worn out, not
Right.
just with your stuff, but just with the volume of emails in general. So if you start changing both of those things, but you focus on pruning your list and emailing only the engaged contacts, you're going to see your open rates climb. You're going to see your click rates climb, and that's going to get you out of the promo tab. You're
Oof,
focusing on the wrong thing. You're focusing on the problem rather
right.
than the solution.
You dropped some bombs there, Scott. I've never heard anybody say 80% open rates like that, but it makes a lot of sense. It really
Yeah.
does. I mean, at the end of the day, these services, the Googles, the Microsofts, they're trying to serve their client.
Yeah.
And the way they serve their client is by making sure that they're not letting junk into that client's inbox, because
Yep.
a lot of us would immediately blame, whatever email client we're using,
Yeah.
Why am I getting all of this spam? Why is nothing being blocked? And people used to buy spam killers and all kinds of stuff to try and keep the junk out of their inboxes.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense when you just think of it from a different point of view, the
Yeah.
point of view of the person receiving the email, and then the point of view of the email client, the company that creates that email client for you.
Yeah.
So
Well, here's
that's
the thing, is
huge.
that if you're focusing on the people who are opening, clicking, and replying, guess what? You know that they're interested in what you're
Right.
saying, what you're offering. They're going to turn into business. That's how you grow. The analogy that I use now, I tell people just up front, I could kill a potted plant. Okay. I can kill a plastic plant because I don't have a green thumb. But I do know this from people who are master gardeners
Right.
that if you don't cut off the dead stems and the leaves and the stalks and everything from your plants and your flowers and everything, they are not going to blossom. They
Right.
are not going to grow. If you're using email marketing to grow your business, but you don't cut off the dead weight, which are the subscribers that are not engaging with your emails, you're not going to be able to use email marketing to grow your business. It's
Right.
just it's just a fact of life because you're not willing to prune your list. And that's so important for a healthy email marketing business.
Now, I absolutely love that analogy because I'm a vegetable gardener. So, and I totally resonate. You just put it in English for me, makes it easy for me to understand. Yes, you do have to prune. Otherwise, that plant is sending energy
Yeah.
to the dead stuff and the dying stuff, and not sending the energy where it could do the most benefit for you and for your business and for your plant or whatever. So,
Yeah.
huge analogy, folks. I hope you grab that one. And I want to pull you back for a second, Scott,
Uh-huh.
because you rambled off some really good, I call them controls, metrics. What should I be tracking to know whether or not what I'm doing is good or not good?
Yeah.
If I
Great.
let's put it, if I could only have three numbers to gauge whether or not I'm going to be somewhat successful with email marketing, what might you suggest they be?
There's going to be four. So we're
Okay.
going to do it to four.
I'm okay with a fourth. That's
Okay.
cool.
So number one, you need to be looking at your open rate. Again, it's not the be all end all metric. It's very unreliable, but it is a starting point and you want to look at it in conjunction with these other numbers.
Right.
Okay. So it's not a standalone thing that says, "Oh, I've made it." No, you have to look at it in conjunction with these other numbers. So how many people are opening your emails? How many people are not opening your emails? Secondly, what's becoming more and more important. You thought 80% was crazy for the
Right.
number that I said? Wait until you get this number. The second number that you need to monitor is how many people are clicking on your links in your emails.
Ooh.
Do you want to know
Okay.
what that number is?
Right.
40%.
Really? Wow.
40% is the safe zone. Now, here's the thing. Most people are at maybe 1 to 2%, probably less than that.
Yeah, I would say definitely. Most are usually somewhere between 1% and 3%.
Exactly.
You
So
know?
you're like, oh my God, is this even possible, Scott? Yes, I've got clients I can prove to you that hit both of those numbers, 80 and 40, but they work in conjunction together. Once you get up to the 80%, it's a whole lot easier to get up to the 40% on the clicks.
Right.
Because, and here's why it's difficult to get to the 40%. You and I, as senders, we have this mentality, this mindset. I type an email, I just share information, I send it. I don't ask people to do anything. We have to change that mindset. We need to give people instructions. Here's what I want you to do. And I want you to get out of your inbox. I want you to go over here. Number two, we have to educate our audience that that's what we need them to do because the mailbox providers are requiring it. Google specifically states they updated their documentation in late 2024. We do not track opens.
Oh, okay.
So if they don't track opens, what do they track? They track
Exactly.
clicks and they track replies. They want to see
Ah,
clicks and replies. Yahoo is telling people, we want to see engagement with your emails. That means clicks and replies. And so we need to get that number up. But from day number one, email has been a method of consumption. We get an email on our phone or on our computer, we open it up, we read it, we delete it. We've gotten into the habit of doing nothing with most of our emails. And
right.
we have to change people's habits. Well, you and I both know that takes time.
Yes.
Time for us, and we have to educate our subscribers and let them know. So that's the second metric, opens and clicks. The third metric, you need to be looking at the number of spam complaints that you get. Now
Interesting. Yeah.
that you can't just look in your CRM. You also need to be looking at Google and Yahoo as well, because not all spam complaints get reported back to your CRM.
Yes.
So it's not exactly the rules of being fair. They make it difficult for us, but you do need to look at your spam complaints because that will hurt you tremendously. And then number
Right.
4, you need to look at your bounce rate. How
Bounce
many
rates.
bounces are you getting from emails that you're sending out? Now, if you're pruning your list and you're emailing just people who've engaged within the last 90 days, you should have very, very, very few bounces. That should be an almost zero number. If you watch those 4 metrics, keep a good eye on those and make data-informed decisions, you're going to have success with your email marketing.
So what would be like a really, like, let's say a bad number of spam, like let's say, and then we're not talking percentages, but bounce rates, let's talk percentage wise. If I send out 1,000 emails and I get 100 bounces back, how does that affect me?
Yeah, it tells Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo, you don't have a clean list. You're not keeping your list clean. You're just accumulating email addresses and then you're just sending them out. And you're not paying attention to engagement either. Because let's say that you've been emailing, let's say I've been emailing you at a Gmail address that you created 20 years ago. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to use this one anymore. And
Right.
so, you cancel the account and it gets shut down. Well, let's say that, you just do that within this last week. Okay. But I've been emailing you for the months prior. If I haven't been paying attention, hey, Dean's not been opening my emails, but I continue emailing you, and then all of a sudden that email bounces, that tells the mailbox providers, like, Scott's not been paying attention. Dean's not been opening these emails. He's not been clicking on them. He's not been replying, but yeah, he's still emailing him. And then boom, he closed his account. Now that email address doesn't exist.
Right. Right. So with these 4 different numbers that you're throwing at us, for a business owner, how often should they be looking at these numbers?
At least monthly. Now,
At
some
least
of them you
monthly.
want to look at, when you're sending your broadcasts and things like that, but you want to do that at least monthly. And we, can take care of that for you, monitoring that, sending you those updates and those reports. We have services around those types of things. But it's important to keep an eye on it. I mean, you wouldn't reconcile, I hope, as a business owner, you wouldn't reconcile your bank accounts once a year.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Exactly.
you're looking at those numbers, hopefully every week, maybe
Right.
more frequently. How profitable are we? The same with your email, because when anything gets out of whack, it can have some serious problems and things can go downhill really quickly.
Now, the Googles of the world, let's say I've got the 80% open rate, I've got the 40% click rate going on. Am I going to get treated any differently by these big clients out there that like the email client companies like Microsoft and Google? Are they treating me differently?
Yes, believe it or not, they do.
In what way?
Because, and now, I mean, we all know that, I mean, if you are a high volume sender, like, you can get away with a lot of stuff, because I get this objection all the time. Well, I have all these emails from these big companies that, they're not landing in the promo tab. They're not landing in spam. And, they're constantly in my inbox. Well, they can get away with it because they're doing a lot of things right and they're sending such a high volume. But let's
Right.
just say that you still only have 1,000 people on your list that you're emailing on a regular basis, or even 500. I've seen this with some of my own clients. They get up to that 80 to 40%, 80, 40%, thresholds. Now that's where you get to have fun with email. So up until that point, you really need to be making sure that you are following all of the best practices and the rules of email marketing. You don't want to bring the spotlight of Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo on you. Once you get to that 80 and 40% threshold, now you can have fun. You can test things. You can say, well, let me see how my audience will respond to this. Let me try this re-engagement campaign. Let me, do something totally different. And even if you have a mistake, you get a bunch of spam complaints. Usually, in most cases, they'll say the mailbox providers, they'll look at it and be like, you were stupid. You shouldn't have done that, but we're not going to penalize you. We're going to let that one slide.
Right.
And then, okay, you learned your lesson, so you don't do that again, and things are good. You don't get penalized with your domain reputation. Like nothing, negative happens. When the mailbox providers see that you are a trusted sender and that you're doing a good job of managing your list and, getting your subscribers to engage, they're going to be a lot more lenient on you, and they're not going to bring the smack down like they would somebody who's constantly getting spam complaints, having a lot of emails bouncing, and all of that type of stuff.
So is it quite possible that the Googles and the Microsofts of the world might not deliver your email?
Yeah, it could happen. I mean, I've seen people where they do something really, really bad, and they've been consistently doing bad stuff, maybe not egregious, but the one thing, Google's like, you're done. Sorry, we're not going to accept your emails anymore.
So it's kind of like getting blacklisted.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yep.
And then what do they do about it?
And, a lot of times that happens with cold email. Right. So a lot of people, that are doing cold email, they go buy list, they scrape list, whatever, and then they just try to blast people, with the typically buy my stuff messages. Those get shut down a lot more frequently, but it can happen on your real domain and your legit domain. You have to be very protective of that.
Now, I mean, coming from the space of web design and websites and digital marketing and so on and so forth, let's say Google blacklists me in terms of my email marketing. Mm-hmm. How does that affect my searchability as far as my website even goes going forward? Is there any connection between what they see me doing on the email side and how they treat my website on the other side? And that's a tough question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not an SEO, Google search specialist or anything. I would suspect that there's probably some, correlation there. But whether Google actually penalizes based on that, or not, I don't know. But here's the thing. If you're using, let's say you've got your website, and mine is hittheinbox.email. That's where my website's at. And then I'm emailing from that domain as well. If my domain is burnt, I have to change it to send emails. Guess what I'm also going to have to do? I'm going to need to change the domain for my website.
For your website, right?
Yeah. Well, now you've just lost all of those SEO rankings and all that stuff that you've built up over the years. Even if Google doesn't penalize you, you've penalized yourself because you've created this damage that you now have to, build from scratch again.
Exactly. And I've played around the SEO game for many, many years, and I can attest to that. That's kind of a nightmare. Yeah. Whenever a client wants to switch their domain name, it's always like timeout. We better think this through before you do that. How long have you had it? Because you're going from a nice warm or a hot domain to something ice cold. Mm-hmm. It can make searchability, how you show up in the search engines, very difficult going forward.
Absolutely.
So we're touching on a lot of stuff here, which I really appreciate. And I want to make sure that that some of these great thoughts are not flying over anybody's head. So if I was to ask you just to boil it down for me a little bit more in terms of, let's take the 80% number that we were talking about before. I want 80% open rate. You mentioned a couple of things right now that can actually help somebody achieve that. Can we ramble a few of those off just really quickly, what those might be?
Yeah. So the number one way to get up to the 80% open rate is look at your numbers, who's been opening, clicking, and replying, and who's not been, and cut off the people who haven't been.
So hygiene at that point,
list hygiene, cleaning your list, pruning your list. That's the number one way. Secondly, you need to be looking at look at the past 6 months worth of emails that you've sent out. look at, what emails. You're not looking at the percentage or the 80%, but you're looking at what emails, what subject lines, what's the topics, when did I send them, what emails got the most engagement, what were people really interested in. That's going to give you a clue. Oh, okay, I should be sending more of that stuff. And what were the
Right.
emails that didn't get as much engagement? Okay, well, let's like put that on the back burner. Maybe we can revisit another way to send that content later on, but send more of what people are interested in. If you've got 3 emails and you've got one that got a 60% open rate, one that got a 40%, and one that got 10, that tells you right there, people want the one they were really interested in, the 60% open rate.
Right.
Whatever that topic was.
Brilliant. And the reason I'm going here with him, folks, is because I want to make sure you walk away with some real actionable insights. And I think that Scott just delivered a few of them right there. Now I'm going to push you a little further, Scott, and we're going to take that 40% number on, because that's an astronomical number in terms of getting people to click on your stuff. Any tips or ideas on how somebody can increase the clickability of their stuff, the engagement of their stuff? Tips, tricks, anything around that?
So number one, as I mentioned earlier, it's an educational process. You just need to be upfront with your subscribers and say, look, the rules of email marketing have changed. If you want to see my emails, you can't just open and read them anymore. I need you to click and I need you to reply. So let's make a pact. At least once a month, with all the emails that I send you, at least once a month, I need you to promise that you're going to click or you're going to reply to my emails. I just need that commitment. Let's make that relationship exchange right here. So it's educating them on what they need to do, because I break things down. I'm going to take a little rabbit trail here. Getting your emails delivered. 4 pieces to the 100% equation. 80% of responsibility is on you and me as the sender. 80%.
Ooh, okay.
We have control over 80% of that. 10% is on the recipient. Because remember, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
I can send you an email, but I can't make you open it. I can't make you click on it. I can't make you reply to it. So that's on you as the recipient. All right. That's going to be really, really important. Then the other 10% is broken up between mailbox providers. 5% of responsibility is on the platform that you're sending your emails from. So that's a Keep, Active Campaign, High Level, HubSpot, whatever that is. How well are they managing the infrastructure that sends out your emails? Are they in good graces with the mailbox providers? That's outside of your control, but that plays a small piece in getting your emails delivered. And then the final 5% are the mailbox providers of your subscribers. That's Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo. Now, right now, when we're recording this, and I'm sure that it will happen whenever this is live, actually, aired, Microsoft is being stupid. And I hope somebody from Microsoft actually listens to this episode because you're being stupid.
Right.
You don't have a freaking clue what you're doing when it comes to email, because your own emails are going to your own spam folders.
Wow.
I'm waiting. Now, I'm hoping maybe there's an attorney listening to this.
Right.
The right attorney could probably file a class action lawsuit amongst all of us small business owners against Microsoft, because it's evident they don't have a freaking clue what they're doing when it comes to delivering emails. So now I'm going to get off my soapbox for a second. But 5% is on the mailbox provider who you're sending to. And again, that kind of ties back into the 10%. So like right now, Microsoft is sending the majority of all marketing emails. I don't care where you're sending it from. Active Campaign, HubSpot, High Level, whatever. Those emails going straight to the junk folder. Has nothing to do with you and what you're putting in those emails. It's Microsoft being idiotic. And so you can't control that. I can't control that. We have to fall back to your recipients. Hey, drag that over, create a rule, all that type of stuff. So that's how the breakdown is who the responsibility is. So we go back. How do we get more of those clicks? So number one is that we have to understand that we need to educate our audience, say, here's what I need you to do. Secondly, how do you word your calls to action? We default, and I find myself doing this as well, right out of the gate, click here to whatever. who wants to click here? I mean,
Right.
that's it, that requires work.
Right.
Go to the gym and exercise. Yeah, I don't want to do that. So how can you reword these calls to action so that they're benefit oriented and it makes somebody like, oh yeah, I want to do that. I get to do that, right?
Right.
Join the 500,000 other business owners who have experienced success by going through our program, whatever that it is. Create a benefit to them taking the action that you want them to take. That will get people actually clicking and replying, to your emails rather than click here and go watch the video.
Right. And that's where the master copywriter in you comes out. I
Yeah.
could hear it there,
Yep. It was a
It
little hard
does
to get back
matter.
to that after being on my soapbox about Microsoft. If you can't tell, I'm really fired up about that. But
Right.
yeah.
So the last time we spoke, Scott, it was about 2 years ago on this topic when I interviewed you last.
Yeah.
And at the time, I believe your book was just coming out, the Hit the Inbox book.
Uh-huh.
Now, tell me about that book for a moment. Is that book still relevant today? Are the principles still relevant? Is there anything big that needs to change in it? Or principles, the principles?
Yeah. So the book, I mean, it's just 76 pages, but it's the foundation to getting your emails into the inbox. And everything, the 4 fundamentals that I put into that book still apply today. They are the best
Fantastic.
practices, and they are also now some of the rules. When I wrote the book in 2022, for example, the chapter about authentication, those weren't rules. Those were
Right.
best practices at the time. In 2024, those became mandatory. If you
Oh,
don't
okay.
have authentication in place, your
Right.
emails simply will not get delivered. And so
Right.
the book was kind of ahead of its time in saying, hey, set yourself up for success. The chapter on engagement is even more important today than it was in 2022 because that's what the mailbox providers are hyper focusing on. So the fundamentals in the book are still the same no matter what the environment is in email marketing today, tomorrow, or 6 months from now.
Right. Amazing. And don't you love it when you're validated in that way? I know I do.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, hey, it just tells you in a way that you knew what you were talking about.
Yep.
And the fact that it stood the test of time, because let's face it, 2 years is an eternity in
Yeah.
the online marketing space.
Yep.
So much has changed. There's so many different players trying to dictate where things are going and why and all of that stuff. But it really always does come down to the fundamentals, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's, we all make business hard. We complicate things.
You could say that again.
I don't know what it is about human nature, but we tend to complicate everything.
Right.
And one of the things that I've been reminded over the years, just go back to the basics.
Right.
It's the fundamentals. You don't have to have all these bells and whistles and all of this fancy stuff. If we just stick to the basic fundamental truths and the principles, we're going to be successful. The reason we're not successful, whether it's in email marketing, in social media marketing, or whatever that business growth, whatever that it is, it's because we overcomplicate things and we forget about the fundamental basics. And if we just stick with that, that's where we're going to have, and it's going to be a lot more fun. It's going to be less stressful and less overwhelming if we just focus on the core fundamentals.
Right. Fantastic. Now, we're probably coming to the top of the hour of the conversation, and I do have another question for you. But before I do deliver that last question, we mentioned your book and the fact that it still remains as relevant today, if not more relevant today than ever before. Just for those listening, because I'm going to be sharing this out too, where could somebody best go get the copy of that book?
The book is really easy to find. Hittheinboxbook.com.
Hittheinboxbook.com. Fantastic.
Yep. Name of the book and add the word book.com and you're good.
Yeah. And what if they want to find out more about you? Where do you hang out online? Where can they bump into you? Where can they find you? How could somebody get started with you?
Yeah, great question. So I've created a free Facebook community, super easy to find. You don't even need to go to Facebook. Hittheinboxcommunity.com. So you want my book?
Excellent.
Hit theinboxbook.com. You want the community? Hit theinboxcommunity.com. You can come in there. You don't even have to be a customer of mine. You can come in that community, ask questions, get your email marketing questions answered. You can comment and interact with other people's questions and posts. And then I also have monthly open office hours calls, and I post those in that group as well in the schedule in there. And so the community is a great place to stay up to date with what's actually happening and then learn more about me. I'm in there, several times a week, usually several times a day. And, just a great way to stay on top of all things email marketing in that community.
Fantastic. And I'm of that same mindset. Whatever it is you want to learn, you've got to immerse yourself in it. Yeah. So if you're really looking to take email marketing up a notch, probably makes a heck of a lot of sense to join that community. Yeah. Right. Just so that you're around it. You're around other people doing it. Everyone's talking about it, and it's going to keep you sharp and keep your feet moving forward. Right.
And here's the thing too. And you said something a while ago, you said it several times throughout this podcast, but there's been a lot of gold nuggets, actionable items that we've discussed in this call. Yes. Here's the thing. Don't let your mind fool yourself that just because I listen to the podcast, I've solved the problem.
Right. Yeah.
Let me go back to my checklist, my open rate maximizer checklist. As I was kind of like auditing who's opted in for it and everything, I was looking at the number of people that opened the email, but never clicked the link to actually go get the checklist. They opted in, they got the email, they obviously were interested, but they never clicked the link to get the checklist. And and the only thing I can attribute that to is that it's the way that our mind works. When we opt in for something, when we buy a course, our mind automatically says, I've solved that problem. And then we don't do anything. How many courses have you and I bought that we never started, we never finished because our mind was like, oh, I invested in that. Oh, I solved my problem. When in actuality, we didn't. So the worst thing that you as a listener could do is having listened to this podcast and not done anything. I'm not saying you have to do everything that we've talked about here today, although you should, but just do one thing. Do one thing. That's what's going to make the difference in your email marketing.
And that was going to be my last question, but I do have one more. I can't let you go without asking you one more. Okay. But just to make sure that everybody understands what's the one thing that they should be doing immediately, it's exactly what you were just saying. Yeah. That they've got to take action on one of these actionable items. If they could only do one, what one might you say, you know what, if you're going to do nothing else right now, if you did this one, at least you'd be on your way. What might that be?
The number one thing, examine where you're at in regards to engagement with your emails. The mailbox providers, that's what they're focusing on right now. That's where they're penalizing people right now. You got to look at your numbers. What's your open rate? What's your click rate? What's your spam rate? What's your bounce rate? Look at those numbers. Get a lay of the land and then make decisions based upon where you're at on how you need to move forward. That's the number one thing. That's the starting point for everybody.
Now, I know back in the day, you used to have some sort of an audit that you would perform. Do you still do things like that?
Yep, we do the Hit the Inbox Audit. It's hittheinboxaudit.com. Has anybody noticed the theme here?
Yeah.
Hit the Inbox Book, Hit the Inbox Community, Hit the Inbox Audit. We try to make it really simple, right? I do an audit. So we can actually take a look underneath the hood and give you, your email health score. We can look at your authentication. What's your domain reputation look like? What does Google think of you? What's the likelihood of your emails getting delivered? What are those 4 metrics that, that I just, shared with you? Those are the types of things that we can do in the audit. And we also look at your email content if there's any issues there, and very affordably give you, here's the lay of the land and here's what you need to do to bring things up to par.
Yeah. Now as a coach, I can agree with that and validate that we've got to know where we are.
Yeah.
And in order to create a strategy and a plan to execute to get to where we want to go. Yep. So we always have to get point A. Where are you now? What's going on? That kind of thing. Very important. Now, typically I would have ended it there, but I can't. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least broach this one disruptor into the conversation. Now, again, remember, folks, I did not share any questions with Scott. I don't know what he's going to say about this. I don't know how much thought he's put into this, but there's this crazy little thing that's in everybody's face right now called AI.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I look at it as the biggest disruptor, business disruptor in my lifetime.
Yeah.
How do you see AI disrupting the email marketing business? How do you see it playing into it? Where do you feel people are going to lean too much into it or not lean enough into it? Any insights on how AI might impact email marketing and email marketing deliverability?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to affect the deliverability in and of itself because Google specifically, if you're using Google Workspace, I don't know if it's in Gmail yet or not, but Google Workspace, the darn buttons right there when I'm trying to type my email, write my own email, it's like, have Gemini write it for you. I don't, so I think, the Google, Microsoft, Apple, and Yahoo, they're all for AI. And so I don't think that they're going to penalize people for using AI to craft email messages. Where we're going to fall into a problem is AI gives everybody the ability to exponentially disseminate a bunch of crap.
Yeah, to put it mildly.
To put it mildly.
Yeah.
You could use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever one that you want to write an email for you. But without the proper research of who your ideal customer is or your ideal recipient is, and the proper massaging of that messaging, AI is going to fall short. But here's what it will do. It will expedite your path to failure. I think most of us as business owners want to expedite our path to success.
Right.
Email offers us that opportunity as well, but you have to know how to leverage AI and use it in conjunction with human thought and capability in order to get the best results from using it for email marketing. So I'm not saying I'm not against it, but what I do think, because here's what's going to happen. There's going to be a number of people listening to this podcast. They're going to go out and they're going to use AI and start writing that for all of their email messages.
Yes.
And they're going to send this to their list. And what they're going to see is that their opens and their clicks and their replies and their overall engagement is going to decline. Why? Because people don't want you just regurgitating what comes out from AI and sending that to them. They could go to AI and get the same thing, right?
Right. Good
They
point.
want something different. They want personality. They want your unique perspective on it. AI is not going to give that to them. And so if you're just putting out crap, people are going to say, I'm out, I'm done. And then you're going to be in a world of hurt of everything that we just talked about earlier.
Fantastic. Well, this has been quite the masterclass of.
We can keep going on for hours.
I know, and raising the game here. And I think maybe we even go another time and take this up a whole nother notch. But I believe today what you've masterfully done is give people real, tangible insight and action items on what they should and could be doing right now.
Yep.
Not next week, not next year, right now, to actually build their business, grow their business, ultimately scale their business. Yep. Finding a marketing approach that actually may stand a chance of doing something. So much marketing I see these days is garbage. People don't know what they're doing.
Yep.
And we play a lot of follow the follower, right? But the bottom line, and I'm going to come back to one huge point you made early in the conversation today. It's all about relationships.
Yeah.
It's all about going deep, not broad with your audience. It's all about caring enough to put together top-notch, top quality value. And when you do that, if I'm hearing you correct, Scott, they typically will respond in kind.
Yeah.
You know, when you communicate well with them, they're going to communicate well back. And it's
Yep.
going to feel like a real relationship, not just an email blast going to 10,000 people.
Yep.
You know,
Exactly.
I think that's mission critical for everybody.
Yeah. You want to
So
show up, as Dan Kennedy says, you want to show up as that welcome guest in their inbox, not the annoying pest. Oh,
that's
another email
right.
from that person.
Right. And all of us must at some point or another have somebody's emails that we save.
Yeah.
Because they usually bring so much value, right?
Yep.
We don't delete them right away.
Yeah.
You know, and I know I do that.
Yep.
You know, I have somebody else who manages my inbox for me because I just can't anymore.
Yep.
I get thousands of emails. So, but they know if an email comes from this guy, this girl, that guy, don't touch those.
Yep.
You know, drop them in this other folder for me. So when I got an hour, you know, later in the week, I sit down and I go through those.
Yeah.
You know, so think about that. I would say, folks out there too. Do you have people that send you stuff that you behave that way with? Because there's usually, you know, success leaves clues.
Yeah.
There's usually clues in there on what you like, what works.
Yep.
You know, and chances if you like it, somebody else might too.
Absolutely.
So on a parting note, Scott, is there any last nugget you want to give, or do we kind of cover pretty much the broad gamut?
We covered everything. The one parting note that I will say, and this just kind of really came to me in a conversation with the guy that's in my Titans mastermind, because this came through with my open rate maximizer checklist. An hour after I send the email that delivers the checklist, I send out an email that says, hey, please reply to this email and let me know that you got the checklist. I want to make sure that it actually got to you. Because, I mean, things can happen, right?
Right.
Very, very, very few people reply to that email. Very few people, even though it's just short. And like, I'm literally wanting to make sure that you actually got the checklist.
Right.
Here's the thing. If you and I aren't modeling the behavior that we want from our subscribers, why should we expect them to do something that we're not doing?
Bingo. I love it, man. It is so true. And it's so human behavior. And that's why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Because we all do it. We're all guilty of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's an area that we do have to tighten up and shore up. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. So, Scott, this has been awesome. I hope for all listening here today that you got as much value out of it as I got out of it. And I do this stuff for a living, not the same stuff Scott does. I don't dig in as deep as he does with email marketing, but I play pretty hard in the area for my own business and stuff. So I know to be so, a lot of what Scott is saying is fact, is truth, you know? But Scott's the guy that you need if you want to get it fixed. If you want to get this stuff working right for you, that's the guy you want to call. So on that note, is there anything, I mean, because this is your podcast, I'm going to turn the table back around to you so you could close it out. But once again, Scott, I do want to thank you for the honor of allowing me to be here with you.
I appreciate you reaching out and saying, you know, hey, let me interview you for your own podcast. And this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I always love having conversations with you. So, just kind of a reminder, hittheinboxbook.com. If you're wanting to supercharge your email marketing, that's my book, Hit the Inbox, and it's packed with 76 pages of strategies to get your emails landing in inboxes and driving sales. And if you found value in this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. It helps us reach more entrepreneurs like you. And until next time, keep crushing it in the trenches.